In this video, I'm going to show you the zero discard strategy that I use to keep my sourdough starter and how it helps me save time using an overnight fermentation method. In this series, I'm taking you step by step through the process that I use from creating a brand new starter to baking the first loaf all the way through to baking a variety of beginner loaves. I'm going to teach you scheduling tactics, how to tweak other people's recipes to work for you, and how to design new formulas from the ground up. If you've got any suggestions for other topics that you need help with, let me know in the comments down below and we'll get those added to the series too. Right, so my starter's 27 days old today and I've been strengthening it by feeding it daily using the method that I showed you in the first video. So now my starter's mature and it's strong, so I've got a choice. What do I want to do? Do I want to continue to feed it daily or do I want to switch to a zero discard strategy? Now there's no right or wrong method here. Both of them produce a really great loaf of sourdough. I prefer the zero discard method because I don't have to worry about daily feedings or using up any discard, and it works perfectly for the time-saving method that I use to create my leaven. Right, so I'm planning to bake tomorrow. That's going to be 28 days from the very first day that my starter began to ferment properly. So I'm going to tip nearly all of my starter into the discard jar, leaving behind about 5 grams of scrapings. I'm going to pop the discard back into the fridge, and then in the next video, I'll show you how to bake an awesome sandwich loaf using up the leftover starter. Nothing goes to waste, and it's an absolute flavour bomb. Now I need about 96 grams of leaven for tomorrow's dough. So I want to make enough leaven for the dough, plus a little bit more to account for weight loss during fermentation, and leave a little bit more left over to seed the next leaven. So to the scrapings, I add 50 grams of water and 50 grams of good quality strong white bread flour. That's going to be plenty for what I need. Now, using such a small amount of starter to seed our leaven means that it's going to ferment slowly. So at 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to ferment overnight while I'm sleeping. And then it's going to be ready to use first thing in the morning. This is a great scheduling tactic because it means we can mix our dough very early in the morning and we're in no danger of running out of time waiting for the dough to ferment. So the next day, when we knock up our dough, we add the water, the salt and the flour. I add 96 grams of leaven, and then what's left over is going to be kept in the fridge. The next time that I want to bake, I just pull the jar of scrapings out of the fridge, I create the leaven, and then after I've added it to the dough, I pop the scrapings back into the fridge. It's this constant cycle. Feed the scrapings and create the leaven. Use the leaven in the dough and then pop the scrapings back in the fridge. Now at this point, I want to give a massive shout out to Jack from the Bake with Jack channel. It was his video that got me completely hooked on this method. It's thanks to him that I was able to simplify my entire process and create this better scheduling kind of program. It saves time and flour. Right, so if you want to try this discard-free method of maintaining your starter, there are a couple of things that you should know. First up, if you don't spend long enough building strength into your new starter before switching to this method, there's a very good chance that it's going to become weak and it's going to become sluggish. I spent 28 days deliberately feeding my starter every day to make sure that it was absolutely bulletproof before I kind of switched it over. Can you reduce that to 2 weeks? Probably, but you're going to run a much higher risk of failure down the road. I don't know about you, but I'd rather increase my chances of success from the very beginning. Secondly, for at least the next 3 months after switching to this method, I'd suggest baking with your starter at least once every week, possibly stretching it to 2 weeks. It's going to help with conditioning the starter and keeping it healthy while it's in the fridge. And thirdly, once these starters are strong, they can be left for months in the fridge, but it's not a competition to see who can leave theirs the longest. There's always a possibility that your starter will get tired and sluggish. If that happens, pull it out the fridge, show it some love, and give it a couple of feeds. And lastly, what's the right terminology to use? What is this culture called? Is it a starter or is it a leaven? Well, I guess you can call it either, but I like to think of the scrapings that I keep in my fridge as the starter, and the leaven is what's created after I add the flour and water. Don't miss the next video because I'm going to show you how to take the discard that we've got in the fridge and create an absolute flavour bomb of a sandwich loaf. So stay tuned.